Your triple gem, thus to die here at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on Masa Vulture's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage Jin who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly, beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, so on up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration and without fear, having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, so manifestly, completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as true since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata gati gati parasamgati bodhisoha. Shariputra the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavana rose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It's like that once you practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharipadiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed, highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan. I and all surrounding sentient beings go for refuge to the Buddha, go for refuge to the Dharma, go for refuge to the Sangha. We prostrate to the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, wisdom God beyond, surrounded by all the children and by the assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. By depending on my prostration to all of you, may these words of truth be actualized. In the past, the Deva King Indra dispelled the Maras by reflecting on the profound meaning of the wisdom gone beyond, and reciting the profound words in daily recitation. In that same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of the Great Mother Prajnaparamita, and recite the profound words in daily recitation. May all diseases, spirit possessions, bad conditions, all the negative directions, that which happens due to past karma and immediate conditions, may all this be dispelled, may it become non-existent, may it be pacified. I'm going to the mandala offering on page 97 and 98, depending on your prayer book. We'll do the first verse in Tibetan and the second one in English. Oi saji bogi jojimeto tramri rablin jinye degen badi sanye jindu perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom. Please release a vein of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami Sangye Chodan Sogi Chodnama Janju Badu Dagi Kapsuchi Dagi Chonyin Gebe Sonam Nidola Penchir Sangye Druparshu Sangye Chodan Sogi Chognama Janju Badu Dagi Katsuchi Dagi Chonyin Gebe Sonam Nidola Penchir Sangye Druparshu. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Clock. Oh, here. Yeah. Sorry. So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Before we actually start, I would like to start with few moments to generate motivations. So again, we try to relax and settle, relax our body, mind, and settle our body and mind by focusing on the breath for a few seconds, a few moments. Then maybe we try to generate good intention, motivation for being here. For example, by thinking, may my time and session here be more beneficial, most meaningful, most helpful to oneself and all sentient beings. May these sessions be most beneficial in understanding how distractive our negative emotions, especially the anger, is, to have a more deeper understanding. And may we find a way, method and practice to reduce and overcome those distracted emotions as much as possible. And to be able to develop the antidotes, the constructive emotions of the patience. So I think, let me just summarize what we discussed last week. Last week we discussed that among many of the disturbing emotions and thoughts, this particular emotions of anger or hatred is one of the most destructive, one of the most disturbing emotions. It destroys a lot of our positive energy, virtues that we have created. Even though there are other negative emotions which also destroy the virtues and positive energy or positive karma, such as some of the scripture they explain, such as the wrong view, ill will feeling. They can also destroy our virtues, positive energy karma. But the worst negative force which destroy those positive energy force is the anger. So so with that understanding, we try as much as possible to reduce and decrease the anger and hatred as much as possible. So I think more or less last time we just finished I guess two verses or something. The first. Another thing that sometimes there is misunderstanding when people think of patience and tolerance, that if you are patient and tolerance, it means sign of weakness. Again, there is one misunderstanding of that. Another misunderstanding, having patience and tolerance means taking the defeat and allowing other person to do whatever he or she is engaging into, whether he or she is mistreating you or mistreating others. It means allowing them to do and not to do anything, not to respond. Again, sometimes people have this misunderstanding that this is the patience. That is not the patience. Patience means that when someone or some things happens, that your mind is not disturbed by such actions or by such events. Your mind is not disturbed by that, your mind is not hurt and not responding with the negativities, not feeling that the anger, hatred or other negative feelings. But one can respond to such one can respond to some mistreatment or injustice done to oneself or others. Responding back doesn't mean of stopping them from engaging into more unhealthy and harmful action. Doesn't mean it's not patience. But it is with what state of mind are you responding? That is the key. Are we responding with anger, hatred, because we are hurt, because we are so upset, because our mind is so disturbed? Or are we responding with your calmness or even compassion, because you see such actions is not healthy, such action is not helpful, such actions is very harmful for others and the person who engaged in that action itself. So responding whatever appropriate response that it is needed to stop that person from creating more harm, but with more peace, calmness, or if possible, even love and compassion. That is practice of patience. Lord of the Bodhisattvas, actually in Bodhisattvas, some of the Bodhisattvas vows actually not responding to stop such actions when you do see that they are creating a lot of harm, and you can stop them, is actually breaking one of the Bodhisattva's vows when you actually see it. But here, what we are saying is not to respond, not to react with anger, hatred, disturbed minds. Because when we respond with such anger, hatred, or when our mind is disturbed, then normally it is not the response is not positive, and it also becomes harmful. You are trying to stop something which is harmful, but you are using harmful method itself. It doesn't help that way. Then someone needs to stop you from creating your harmful actions, and it's endless. We all are responding with a anger, hatred, and harmful way to stop someone else doing that. And that doesn't stop the problems. That doesn't ease the problems. When someone's patience they have much more confidence in themselves, much more courageous in themselves. And because of that confidence and that courageous, they don't respond hesitantly or immediately or in a negative way. For example, maybe if we have some disagreement with certain issues, person who has patience is able to listen more, able to listen better what he or she has to say, and to be able to respond peacefully, calmly, your own different ideas, your own different view on that issue, without feeling so agitated, angry. That is sign of confidence. That you don't need to be so agitated and angry to respond to something you don't agree with. Whereas when we don't have patience, then we respond with such anger, hatred, and agitated, where you have no control on your own emotions. You have no control over your own words, your own actions. That is signs of weakness, because you are not unable to control yourself. So patience, tolerance give you much more confidence. It's a sign of confidence, courageous. On the other hand, so I think that is sometimes we have that misunderstanding, and I wanted to kind of clarify that misunderstanding, and I think probably it will come again. Verse number 3, my mind will not experience peace if it fosters painful thought of hatred. I shall find no joy or happiness. Unable to sleep, I shall feel unsettled. So, if we allow ourselves under the strong emotions of anger, strong control of anger, not only it destroys a lot of the virtues, positive karma we have created, but immediately the moment that anger arises in ourselves, whatever peace, calmness, peacefulness that we had before is gone. That moment is gone. It takes away, immediately it takes away the peacefulness, the calmness, the serenity, whatever that you were feeling before. The moment anger arises, it's gone. So therefore there is no peace. There is no inner peace in yourself, despite whatever external peace there might be. There is no peace in yourself. Externally everything might be so well, perfect, but there is so much unpeacefulness in your mind because of that anger. For example, if we give on a beautiful day like today, you are feeling a little bit hungry, and then you order your food, the best food, your favorite food. It's served, and it's served as you wish, very delicious, and you started to enjoy, you start to feel good about the day, about yourself. Is wonderful day, such a lovely food with such a lovely friends, very cheerful, very joyful. Seems like what a great life. Feel like what a great life. What a happy life. What a peaceful life. Suddenly, someone says something which you don't like it in the conversations, or something, you hear something unfortunate, something very disturbing news or something, your mind is disturbed, upset, immediately anger arises, and then everything changes. Everything changes. Immediately that moment everything changes. The food which was so delicious doesn't taste delicious anymore. The weather which was great doesn't seem great anymore. Your friends, everything who feels so cheerful, so helpful, great, doesn't seem anymore. Life seems so, it can change opposite immediately because of that anger and then negative thoughts, feelings. Immediately all whatever peace there is gone. That's our experience. Nothing complicating. Nothing philosophical. You don't need any scientific proof. That's our personal, direct experiences. So when we are under the control of anger, there is no peace in our mind, and there is no joy in our body. Before your body was feeling so relaxed. Now your body started to become tense, uptight. The moment you get angry, your body becomes tense and uptight. There's no more physically, not only on mental level, on physical level, there's no more relaxation. Before it was feeling so relaxed. Now that has changed to intense energy physically, very uptight. And sometimes we started, if it is strong anger, then even the way we breathe started to change. We are not breathing anymore normal. In some cases, people started to shiver and shake their body. that is what happened on physical level, on mental, emotional level. So you can see how destructive that emotion is. It totally transforms your mental state, your physical state, from being very peaceful and relaxed to so unpeaceful and so tense. Not only yourself, then you create that kind of tense environment around everyone who is around you. If I'm angry and upset and so much anger, the moment I get that anger, I create that intense environment here. Everyone become more intense now. Everyone feel that way. Intense. Everyone feel uncomfortable. Before, it's very comfortable, we were relaxed, discussing. Now everyone's very uncomfortable. Sometimes we look each other, doesn't know what to say, how to react. Should I say something? Shouldn't I say something? Should I do something? Shouldn't I do something? So everything becomes so kind of create that kind of things. So uneasiness, so uncomfortableness. Not only yourself, but everyone around you. So that is how destructive it is. Those are immediately that you feel it when we are under strong anger. So therefore we cannot find joy, internal joy, happiness, or on physical level, joy, happiness, comfort, realizations. Not only that, on top of that, then unable to sleep. If we are still holding that anger very strongly, your mind keep on repeating that what happened. That situations, and always thinking how to respond, how to retaliate, so that how you can kind of put down that person, and you are constantly thinking about that. And because your mind is so busy with that and so angry and upset, it's hard to have good sleep. It's hard to have good sleep. Because your mind is so focused on that, what happened, constantly thinking about that, cannot let it go, and constantly thinking, how can I respond back? And if we have some power, ability, we will definitely take actions in a negative way to harm that person. If he has harmed one a little bit, we want to harm kind of double of that. And if we don't have the capacity, ability, because he or she is too strong and we are too weak, then still our mind is so disturbed and angry and constantly thinking all the time, making our life very miserable. When you are in such an anger state, nothing looks so beautiful, good. And I shall feel unsettled. Your mind is so unsettled. Your mind is so agitated when we are in that anger state. So with that, what we understand is the anger, the hatred, how destructive it is. How destructive it is. Sometimes maybe we don't give enough tensions and not having enough mindfulness and awareness to really observe how we feel when we are in those state of mind. If we really mindfully, with a full awareness, if we observe, then we will begin to understand how incredibly destructive that is, how harmful it is to oneself and others, how useless it is, how painful it is to be in that state, to be in that emotion state. So the deeper understanding we have that, the more we develop a determination to overcome it. If we don't understand how harmful it is, then we have less determinations, less willpower to overcome it. So therefore, that is why the author, Shantideva, is going so detailed for us to understand on much more deeper and profound level how destructive it is, how painful it is. Then the verse number 4. A master who has hatred is in danger of being killed, even by those who, for their wealth and happiness, depend upon the master's kindness. Again, when we are in that state of that anger and negative emotions, our blood pressure increases. Those who have diabetes, it increases. I have few friends who have diabetes, and they told me that they notice when they are angry that it goes up, and when their mind is calm, it comes down. That is their experience. I don't know whether it happens to everyone, but definitely it happens to a lot of people. A few people also in the monastery who notice themselves when they observe themselves. They notice when they are kind of upset, angry, then that sugar levels go up. Also, we can see sometimes when you are disturbed by such anger and hatred for a long time, you begin to feel stress and pain here. Do you get it? Like here, you feel very pain. And of course, as I mentioned, we become very uptight. And in some cases, it leads to strokes. People have heart attack, strokes, because they are so angry, so upset. It could take your life. Normally we never think, how can my anger take my life? But it is possible. A lot of people do have those heart attack, stroke, because they are so upset and so angry or certain things and not being able to let it go. And sometimes it, depending on your health situation and so forth. So here is the author Shantideva is saying that someone who has been so, let's say someone who is master and the boss and the employer or employee, or the boss and what you call boss and worker, maybe worker, the boss and the worker, or the I don't know, servant is the right word. Servant and the masters, I guess maybe in these cases, maybe that was how in the old times, maybe how. So, for example, someone, a master or your boss or someone who give you job, who give you everything for your sustaining, who help you in every way, let's say. It can be even your parent. This is just one example. It can be master, it can be parent. Okay? A parent who gives so much to the children's education, who took care of them until they grow up, provided the food, the shelter, clothing, education, everything that. But when the children or the servants, when they get angry, that angry emotion take over and they totally forget what their parent has done to them or their master has done to them. And then their response with that anger in a negative way, sometimes they even take the life of your parent, your friends, your masters. It happens. They would never have done that if they were not in that state of anger. Normally, when their mind is clear, they are aware and they remember they have been very kind, very helpful, beneficial in their life. But in the state of that anger, a lot of them, they totally forget about it. And in extreme actions, that they even take lives of those. So you see in the news, quite often. Sometimes people have a relationship, and they love each other very much, care about it very much, and then suddenly they have some argument, something happens, and someone get very upset and anger, and then sometimes they take someone's life, the life of someone who you love very much, you care so much. But until that anger, because you have some argument or certain issue, and then the anger takes over, then and he or she totally takes someone. Normally, he or she is willing to kind of sacrifice themselves to protect that person. They cannot bear and stand someone harming them. Do you get it? If someone tries to harm them, they cannot bear it, they can't stand it. But today, he or she actually sometimes take their life and harm himself or herself. Why? Because of that anger, strong anger, hatred. Recently I saw, some news in India, even in Nepal, where sudden young boy started throwing acid on the girl, and because of that similar action, because they didn't respond to his feelings or whatever that love, whatever that feeling, and got so upset and anger. The very object he wanted so much, he destroyed that. It's opposite. You wanted so much, that's why you got upset and you destroyed that object. And that is how our anger does. We destroy the very object we want. So, you get angry. Whether it's children, whether it's the servant, or whether it's friend, not only you get angry, because you get angry and you acted with that anger, your boss, your master, your parents, whoever that is, they also get angry. And then we started a big fight. And with that big fight, then we end up being like crazy, both of us, being like crazy, trying to destroy each other, trying to harm each other as much as possible, trying to destroy each other as much as possible. And totally we become from human to inhuman. Then people become like animals, maybe even worse than animals. Then we treat the other person so badly, so negatively, very inhumanly. It is so, within the short period, before that both of us were treating as a human being with a respect, with a gratitude, and with understanding each other. Suddenly everything changes, just the opposite. What makes us to change and transform in that opposite negative within a short period is our anger and hatred, that negative emotions. A lot of the things that we see in the world, the violence, the killings that we see in the world, a lot of them are driven by a lot of anger, hatred. A lot of them are driven by anger and hatred. We can see that frustration leading to anger and hatred, and with that anger and hatred leading to such a very very sad actions, very harmful actions, very painful actions. Normally, when someone helped me, if someone helped me by providing me food, service, providing me care, clothing, shelter, I feel normally we feel very kindness of that person's. Very kindness of that person's. We feel very gratitude for that person, very thankful of that person. And we respond, trying to repay the kindness in whatever way we can. That is normally when we are in a more good state of mind. But when we are in the state of anger and hatred, that changes. That totally changes. You don't feel the gratitude, you don't feel the thankfulness, you don't feel the kindness. We forget everything. And then instead of paying kindness, we pay in the opposite way. Instead of trying to help them, we try to harm them. That is what anger does, hatred does. So then, again, with that we understand how destructive it is. Then verse number 5. One of another great Indian masters, Shantideva, said in his writing on Madhyamika Avadara, engaged in the middle way. If someone harm you, and if you get angry, and if you get angry for his or her actions, for that actions, harming actions, by getting angry and hatred, will the situation change or not? What has already been done? If it changes what has already been done, it can reverse back, then there is some reason to get angry and hatred. If it cannot change what has already happened, whatever harm it has already been done, it doesn't make sense to get angry. It makes more sense to let it go. And he says, and it is against to get angry. The response with anger is against the very practice of the novels, the very practice of the bodhisattvas. Is against the very practice of the beyond ordinary beings. So therefore, again, we try to, with that kind of understanding, we try to let go of anger as much as possible. And again, he said, when we are in a state of anger, it makes us very physically very unpleasant, isn't it? Before you are angry, you are smiling, kind of positive energy, you know. Suddenly you get angry, your face started to change. Started to get tense, started to get more red and red. I think if you are more wider, maybe it's more easy to notice. Maybe those who have more complex skins, maybe it's a little bit more difficult to notice. If you are very white, then you begin to notice here become red, here red, some places. So your very shape or your body doesn't look so beautiful anymore. And then it leads us to when we are in that state of mind, it leads us to engage into a unskillful action, unwholesome actions, unhealthy actions. And that anger takes away or destroy our ability to make the right discrimination, good and bad. What is good and what is bad? What is helpful, one is unhelpful. Normally we have this capacity, this ability, whether it is our intelligence, wisdom, common sense, to be able to make better judgment, better choices, better. But when we are angry, when we have anger, that takes away all this ability. We totally become like crazy person. Doesn't know what is good and bad at that moment. You can't see it. What is good and what is bad. What is helpful and what is unhelpful. We just become like really, especially when you are strong, in very strong anger. And that is why we mess up a lot of things at that moment, and we regret later. It's almost too late. I have a friend. Actually, he told me and of course some other friends, when we were starting Sera, he was saying that in the past we have a small gas stove when you have to pump. Kerosene come from there, and then you have to pump. Sometimes it is blocked with a small needle, you have to pick it, so kerosene comes. So after the class and before the next puja start, there was all of a sudden maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, he had to fix the food within that and eat it. And he was in hurry, and then the kerosene was not coming, and he was trying to put in, it was not coming. So after some time he lost his patience, and he got very angry and upset, and he throw it and smash it. And then another friend there saw him doing that, and he went to throw into the garbage, And the other friend said, "Can I take it?" And he said, "Yes." He said, take it away." And so of course he went to. And then I think by the time he finished puja, and after that day or tomorrow, the other friend has fixed it, and it was running very well. Now he felt so sad, so sorry, and he really wanted. But under the anger, that's how we do, isn't it? That is his story, but that is very similar how we do it. Very similar how we do it. His Holiness Dalai Lama shared one story all the time. He said, in Tibet there was one, when he was small, there was one person, mechanic, and who also know how to drive car and who can fix. And he saw one day he was trying to fix something, the car, and he bumped his head, in the process when he was trying to. And he said he was bald. And so when he bumped, he got so angry, he started bumping like more. It's kind of crazy, But sometimes we do that, isn't it? He was so upset because he bumped it by accident. And because by accident he bumped it, of course there was pain. That was why he was so angry and upset. And because he was so upset and angry, he started bumping more, which means more pain. So you see, we do the just opposite of what we don't want to do when we are angry. He doesn't want to get hurt. He doesn't want the pain. That is why he was upset when he accidentally bumped it. But then once he was angry, he started bumping more and getting more pain, which he didn't want. It's so strange, isn't it? And that is how these emotions of anger and hatred lead us to do the very things we don't want. Another time, His Holiness also sharing a story of His Holiness used to say, when he was young, he was also sometimes quite short-tempered, sometimes. So he said one time he was trying to memorize the text, and he was having a very hard time, trying to memorize that particular stanza or that particular lines on that day or whatever that was. I think he was just blocked there. He just couldn't memorize that. So he said he got so angry, and after he started to, scratch the letters. He started to stretch each of the letter which you couldn't memorize. It's quite funny, but it is nice. And I had a similar experience myself, when I was very young, also trying to memorize, and again certain time, your mind blocks something, I don't know why. Sometimes your mind just get blocked and then just you couldn't just memorize. Even the very one line, something blockage that day. And that I have even letters. And so sometimes you just throw the text, So it doesn't help anything, but that is how we do when we are under the influence of anger. We break, we throw everything. We say the things which normally we never. Normally, if you see someone use such word, you will be very surprised and think that person is so mean. How can that person use such word, say such things? How can that person be so mean? But when you are angry, you exactly do same thing, if not worse. Things just come out of your mouth, which you are not even aware. Basically, you get out of control, depending on how strong anger is. Yes?
So, I don't know, but do you think that anger stems from hurt? Emotions, hurt feelings?
Yes. As it will come later, the cause of the anger, why we get angry. Because hurt, yeah. Because you feel that someone is doing something directly to which you don't want them to do, or sometimes you feel that they are creating an obstacle for something you want to do, your success, your happiness, your joy. So because of feeling of that, because of feeling of threatening, because of feeling of fear, worries, and all kind of things. So different, as probably will come more later. Yeah. So we will have, yeah.
Geshela, does anger destroy more positive karma than killing?
Well, according to some of the writings, as you see here in Shantidevas, and as well as in some of the sutras, which they are based on, as well as the writing by Chandrakirtis in middle way, engaged in middle way. They didn't mention the killing, destroying that amount of marriage. So it is hard to know. But they do explain the anger, how much anger destroy, how much amount of the marriage that. So, but I guess definitely if you are killing with negative emotions, intentionally killing, I think that will be more negative karma than this one. I think, of course, if we kill unintentionally, unknowingly, that would be different. But I think in knowingly, intentionally, with that killing, I think probably, definitely, I think it will be more. It should be more, I think. Yes, please.
Most killings, intentional killings, probably arise from anger.
Anger and sometimes attachment. It can be from all, but definitely anger play a huge role in killing. So in those cases, killing by anger is much more destructive than killing because of the ignorance, let's say. Both are killing, but I guess because of that, and killing with attachment, killing with anger. So again, probably that can, again, within the killing there are different. Yes, please.
Yes, but there's many more people are engaged in anger response than killing responses. So on a culture-wide basis, anger is a much bigger issue.
Mm-hmm. And on everyday level in our life. We will have a short break, and then can I take these two questions after the break? Yeah.
Sure.
Oh.
Human beings, we have many emotions, and many of them, or all of them, have the potential to be destructive when they're out of balance, but they also have legitimate purpose in how we get along with others and in the world. My question is anger a real emotion, and does it have a legitimate purpose?
Excuse me, is anger a real emotion that what?
I think some of the very highly advanced practitioners in some practice, tantra or some other practice, they can utilize that energy in a positive, whether it's attachment, whether it's anger and that. But that is only when someone has reached very high advance, where they have control of anger, but they intentionally use in a certain purpose. It's not like the anger that we are at, where we have no control, and that anger actually totally kind of leading us instead of us having total control of that. In those purpose, there can be some positive purpose in that. But I think at the moment when we are in these stages, then I think it is always distractive when we allow ourselves to be in that state. But from that emotion, of course, there are a lot of things that we can learn from it, and we can grow up from that. From that emotions, we learn how to be patient and not to be angry. First, having that emotions, knowing that emotions, how destructive it is, and then not letting ourselves to be in the state of that, and trying to develop the opposite of that, with more patience, more tolerance. So in that sense, it helps us to develop that. There is purpose in that sense, if you look from that perspective. Because of anger, maybe we might be able to have more understanding and compassion to others. For example, people who make mistake because of anger. Not because that person, if we don't understand that, it might seem that person is very uncompassionate, evil, so negative because of what he or she has done. So we might immediately see this person's like kind of useless, garbage, most evil, nothing good in that person. But if we understand it's not person because it's so bad, because he or she couldn't control the anger. And because our own experience, we understand when we allow ourselves that state, and when it's very strong, that we lose our control over our actions, over ourselves. And so we do that kind of action. So again, with that understanding, maybe we begin to have understanding or better understand that person, to develop more understanding, more compassion, more love, instead of being. If we don't understand that properly, we'll just say it's so. We might have a different perspective of that person's. Yes.
I find it's good to review a person's history, or what you know of a person's history. When you see a person's angry, and for myself, I often realize that the person is reacting, like everything is reaction, action, reaction, and that the person who's angry is often somebody who's been harmed, and it's almost in proportion to how badly they've been harmed, how angry they become, and how angry they are. So that really helps with compassion and patience when you see that this person that is not being angry for no reason, and this person is not being angry because of the moment. This person is being angry often because of their history and because somebody has harmed them.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I from an FPMP teacher, she was expounding on these anger issues, and she said that in those advanced stages that you're mentioning of practice, anger, the purpose of anger, in her opinion or experience, was to remove obstacles or hindrances, either in ourselves or in others. But then she said that she made a distinction between anger with the intention to harm, with the intent to harm, and just a moment of frustration. Like the example she gave was, for example, if my roommate orders pizza with meat on it and she forgets I'm vegetarian and I become frustrated, does that mean that I am going to, all of my good deeds will be destroyed in that one moment of anger? And she says, come on, that doesn't have to. And so she says that what was key here was also in learning our style of anger. We all have different styles of anger. Like some people think that by removing themselves from a situation, they are being kind or practicing patience, when in fact the intention might be, I'm giving up on this person, now I'm going to leave them alone, they'll know how hard it is to be without me, and so there's that kind of anger, I'm going to lock myself in my room, and so that's one type of anger, as opposed to the anger that says, I'm going to remove myself until I gather more tools to deal with this. Then I'll come back and try it again. So I feel that that was helpful for me, identifying those forms of anger and whether there's an intention to harm or not, even if it's that subtle.
Yeah, definitely. There can be many different levels of anger within the anger, and some are more stronger, worse than others, and of course. But to us, I think anger is always destructive. Even when you don't have intention to harm it, of course, the intention, having anger with intention to harm will be no doubt much more stronger and much more worse. But still, when you are angry, we mentioned, if anything else is destroy your peace, calmness, and totally different environment. And so therefore I think another thing that as Esther was saying, is like culture. And if we kind of allow ourselves to be in that state and not trying hard to kind of separate ourselves from that state from time to time, if we don't put effort, then it can be more cultural, it can be very habitual patterns. Once it becomes very habitual pattern, it's very difficult to overcome it. Because it just comes naturally, spontaneously, and so I think it's important for us to learn how to not to give ourselves to that emotions as much as possible. Sometimes we will be more success than other times, but definitely that is what the author is trying to say, and I think that is what we have to try at least. Yeah. Then verse number 5. By it, friends and relatives are disheartened. Though drawn by my generosity, they will not trust me. In brief, there is nobody who lives happily with anger. So, if we constantly get into a state of anger, then of course, the very people whom we love, care, our family, friends, they become very disheartening, very sad, very painful, miserable. Not only you become miserable, you make others miserable. Not the one you want to harm and make their life miserable, but the one which you want to make their life better, because you are always with them. The person whom you have conflict, he or she lives very far away. You don't have to live with them every day. Maybe sometime in your work, maybe sometime you might have to spend more time. But we spend most of our time with people, our friends, our families, whom we love, care, which we want to see them happy, joy, peace. But when you are in that state of constant anger, not only you feel miserable, you create that environment where everyone around you feel miserable, disheartening, sad, weary, sometimes helpless. Because they want to see you happy. They want to see you happy. They want to help you to get out of that state. But sometimes they just feel that they can't do much, helpless, and again making them even more pain, So therefore, it's not only about you, that is all. Sometimes we might think, I don't want to be happy, I don't care. Do you get it? Sometimes we might think, I don't need to be happy, I don't care. But even you don't care, you don't want to be happy, if you are in constant that kind of emotion, miserable, you create same kind of environment to people. They feel, they don't want to feel it, but naturally they feel it. That's how we are. If they are joyful, happy, it helps to feel you good, joyful, happy. If they are sad, weary, anxiety, it makes you more weary because you can't bear to see them in that state. So seeing them in that miserable state, it makes you miserable. So therefore your family, the very people, you want to see them happy, joy, by being that state. You create the opposite result for them. Instead of them being joyful, happy, they become disheartening, sad, and pain, and miserable. And generally, if we practice generosity with whatever, by helping people who are in needs, by giving your time, by sharing your skill, by giving food, shelter, clothes, whatever their needs are, when you give, of course, normally people like those people who help them in that way. We respond positively. We want to be closer to those people. Same with the animal, isn't it? When we feed them, they are very happy to see you because you feed them all the time. Take care of them well. Feed them, take care of them. When they see you coming, their tails go up, and very kind. And that is also normally our human beings. If someone has been very generous to me with different things and very helpful, of course I want to respond in a positive way when I see that person. But that person, I might be very generous and be giving all these things, but I'm very angry and upset and hatred, constant state. In that case, those people will be a little bit kind of hesitations. Do you get it? Hesitations. They know you are a very generous person, good person, but they also know you are very short-tempered and you can easily lose yourself. So therefore, there is some kind of hesitations. It creates kind of boundaries, wall, to get to know each other, to feel each other, to care and to really feel without any hesitation, without any kind of that. It creates that kind of boundary. I mean, I would very much like to be a person who really take care of me and provide me all these good things I needed. But if he or she is so angry all the time, I'm not so sure about that, whether I want to be so near about that person. Do you get what I mean? So then it's very hard for them to have total trust, total openness, and to be around you all the time because of that energy. That negative energy of that anger and hatred is not positive. So the person has struggled. On one hand, he or she want to be close and because he or she is very generous, helpful. At the same time, because of that anger, the energy is not good, it's not helpful, it is not positive, it's very painful, it is very distractive. So therefore, again, I don't know whether I should be close with that person or not. So therefore, there is less trust, more mistrust. And so therefore, again, that is how I mean, I guess even the animal will know that. You might be feeding them all the time, but if you're angry and if you try to punish them physically, I'm sure there will be hesitations, the way they respond to us, the way they respond now. One side, they are very excited. On the other side, they are fear, feeling of threatening, feeling of fear, the struggle there. And so with that, what we understand is, if I'm very angry person, constantly getting angry, it will be very hard for me to build a good relationship with anyone. Everyone will be very hesitated there, because on one side I have these good qualities, very generous, very helpful in that way. At the same time, I have this so much anger and hatred. And because of that, people feel more threatening and more fear of that, despite knowing a good person in that sense. And so therefore, when there is sense of fear and distrust, it's hard to have a really good open relationship, total good relationship. So therefore, again, it's not so healthy, helpful to oneself and others. So that is how destructive it is. So then, in brief, there is nobody who lives happily with anger. I don't think so. Unless someone has very different experience from our experience. We can pretend we are living very happily. Sometimes we do that. There is so much unhappiness there, but sometimes we pretend we are happy. So unless we do that way, in really from the depth of your heart, from the depth of your mind, from the depth of your that, one cannot be really truly happy internally, peace and happy, if they are in that state of anger. The moment you are in that state of the happiness, peace, joy, calmness, peacefulness is gone. That is our experience. But because of our habitual patterns or familiarity with those negative emotions, such as anger, from the beginner's lifetime, it just pops up when the conditions comes. When the condition comes, anger just arises time to time. Someone says something, someone acts in a certain way, we don't like it, we don't agree with it, suddenly our emotion just arises. That is quite natural, normal for all of us, because we are so used to that anger, that emotions. So when that happens, we try to immediately recognize that, notice that we are in that state, angry state, and that this is not helpful, it's not healthy to oneself and others. Noticing that state and being aware of that it is not helpful, healthy to oneself and others, and with whatever antidote, remedy, method, meditations, practice that we are aware of, that we know, we try to apply as much as possible. As much as possible. At the best, we try to make sure that those emotions, the emotions of anger, doesn't arise at the first place, if possible. Trying very hard not to lead ourselves in that state. That would be the first step. But sometimes even we try our hard, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy. Certain conditions come together and then it just boom, it comes. And when that comes, we try to with the certain whatever practice you are familiar with, we try to reduce it, decrease it, try to let it go as soon as possible, and not to hold it back, and not to have resentment, grudges, and negative feeling, thought towards someone due to that anger. So we try to, the anger arises, but at the same time we don't hold it very long. We try to let it go as soon as possible. We try to let it go as soon as possible by using whatever practice method you know. You use one method, it doesn't work, then you try another. So whatever skills, means that you have, you try to do that, and not to hold on that. So that is the advice the Shantideva is giving us. Same advice the Buddha gave. The longer we hold our anger, the more harm that we create for ourselves. The more miserable we create for ourselves. The more we destroy ourselves. The longer you hold it, the longer that way. So therefore, the faster you are able to let it go, the better it is for you and others. Your family, your friends, everyone's. Verse number 6. Hence the enemy anger creates suffering such as this, but whoever assiduously, what does that mean?
With great effort.
Okay. Yeah. With great effort, yeah. Overcome means find happiness now and hereafter.
Could I read from a different translation, that particular verse?
Mm-hmm.
All these ills are brought about by wrath, our sorrow-bearing enemy. But those who seize and crush their anger down will find their joy in this and future lives. Now, in Western therapy, it's advised not to suppress your anger, don't sit on your anger. And I would say that's also seizing and crushing your anger down. So, but we seem to be saying something different than that. I mean, anger is not viewed as sometimes as a bad thing in Western therapy.
Yeah, in Tibetan traditions or in the Buddhist traditions, we should not express the anger. Otherwise, we get in that habitual patterns. I'm angry to someone, Rohina, and in order to overcome it, I try to express here. I need another object to express it, to let it go. And every time I have to find another object to let it go. And that doesn't help. It helps for momentarily, but directly certain objects, and it doesn't really help to overcome the anger itself. So, but it is not suppressing. In here, we are not suppressing. We are practice of patience is not a suppressing of the anger. We try to change our perspective of the situations. You are angry because you see from one perspective, and that you see it is harmful. You see from one perspective, it is harmful. So we try to change that perspective. You begin to see it is something positive instead of harmful, something useful instead of harmful. So therefore, then the anger doesn't arise. And yes.
I think dissolution is a good term, and I don't see a conflict between or disagreement between the two thoughts or philosophies, because in both cases you're dissolving your anger, and in the Western therapy you're dissolving it by recognizing it and looking at it, and you're examining it in both cases. And it's different when you're a controlled release of anger, like in therapy, as opposed to a total uncontrolled, not reflective release of anger. And I think dissolving is a good word for both cases.
Okay, there are two, three, okay.
I think the word transforming is good, because you use the wisdom and energy that you've earned through your patience practice to transform the anger.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really dissolving it.
So just to rephrase that, it's like part of the Bodhisattva vow is delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them.
Mm-hmm. You want to say something? No.
I have a friend who says anger is very important for her as a boundary setter, and you know, it is this philosophy of Western therapy that others have been talking about. And I'm trying to figure out what to say, you know, when I hear this from a friend.
Maybe not say anything. Just listening.
My husband just said, when he gets angry, and I say, don't get angry, he's like, what? You want me to have a heart attack? I'm French, I'm Italian. That's everything.
I guess sometimes we feel we have to say something every time. Maybe sometimes it is not required, maybe. So I guess it depends from situation to situation, person to person, whether they are looking to you to say something, or whether they want to just expressing themselves, and that they don't want to hear from you. So I guess it depends individual to individual situation to situations. Yes.
Well, my experience of anger is it usually stops me from thinking clearly. Zap, no mind, just emotion. And consequently, you know, like, yes, it's later, you can go back and say, okay, this was this, and that was that, and this set me off, and da-de-da. But I mean, I think the word crushed in that way the translation's used isn't referring to like stomping on something violently. I think it's talking about trying to learn how to overcome what rises. It's talking about a methodology, not so much as going out and, you know, fighting back or crushing something. And so, you know, when I have to really observe, like Geshela says, and it's taking me quite a bit of observation to just chill. You know, we have different language in this culture. You know, you have to just let yourself chill out in order to even get a perspective, because I'm not thinking when I'm angry.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that years ago I had a huge workload and I was just getting overwhelmed, and the administrator of the school kept insisting that I just go and scream into a pillow or get a racket and beat a pillow or do something, you know, to release this kind of
feeling of, just being overworked and overwhelmed, and I refused to. And so she would get angry with me for not wanting to release what she thought was a form of anger when I was just exhausted. And so she would get angry with me, and I said, my thing was, I'll be screaming into pillows my whole life if I keep doing that, because where is the source? I want to find the source of that feeling overwhelmed, and feeling exhausted, or feeling a little frustrated. I want to find the source, and it is only through these teachings that I have found, or I'm finding, the source of it. But there is a Western mentality. If you refuse to get angry, people get angry with you.
Mine's along the same vein as far as boundaries, using anger to set boundaries. Perhaps if you can create, quietly approach the person and tell them, is there maybe a better way, a less harmful way to set boundaries? Mm-hmm. Maybe it takes more creativity, and maybe you have to think more and be a little wiser and set the boundaries with words without anger.
Mm-hmm. I guess I guess as I was mentioning at the very beginning, there is a lot of misunderstanding of patience in the society. Patience, I think, also love, compassion also is very much misunderstood at least from the Buddhist point of view, love and compassion, and also patience. I think. So again, as I said, people feel if you don't have anger, if you are very patient and tolerant, you can't defend yourself. Do you get it? There is this idea, misunderstanding. People will just roll over me if I don't have anger. There's nothing to defend me, protect me. Anger is the one which kind of protect me and defend me. And so that is why a lot of people, because they feel that being compassion, being patient, being tolerant means just giving up yourself to those. So I think someone can have a very compassion, can have a very patient, tolerant, but still they can have a strong actions, strong things to kind of protect themselves, or to have the boundaries so that people doesn't roll over you. So I think there is where I think people sometimes they don't understand it is a state of mind. They think it is a state of how you respond, physically or verbally, maybe physical and verbally. Yeah.
So people believe people are healed by positive thoughts and love remotely, like a patient in the hospital can be healed by people praying for them. Are people also harmed remotely if you're angry, or somebody's angry at somebody who's distant and the person doesn't even know you're angry at them? Do they get harmed? And is that spirit harm, or like spirit harm?
Again, I think it's I don't think one can harm in that way easily.
What is spirit harm?
Well, when we call spirit harm, there are some individual sentient beings, which sometimes maybe we cannot see it with our eyes, but they are there. And just like human beings, they are good spirit, they are bad spirit. And also within the good spirit, maybe also sometimes they get confused and angry, just like ourselves sometimes. And so therefore they can, sometimes in some cases, due to certain circumstances, they might be harmful, just as human beings can be harmful to another human beings. So there is that spirit harms, where it's a kind of sentient beings which we cannot see it, but it is there. But can I harm someone with my anger in that way, that the way I'm thinking positively, very negative about that person who is another part of the world? I don't think so. It can be harmed that way, but in some certain situations, maybe if many other conditions come together, maybe sometimes it might contribute a little bit. It can contribute maybe a little bit. I'm not so sure about that, because I'm just thinking the opposite. If it happens to the opposite, then also in negative can it happen? You know. So because of that, even positive, of course, praying or other form of practice is creating certain cause and conditions, and that person need to have other condition to receive the whole things. So it is just not one-sided. A lot of conditions come together, and karmic connections also play a huge role. How much karmically connected and a lot of things. So I guess from that case, maybe it is possible to contribute to some extent. So I think maybe we'll have a break here. Stop here.
So let's turn to page 100 for the short mandala and dedication prayers. Sajibogi Joshim Reto Tamri My Venerable Lama's life be firm, his white divine actions spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of Losang always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the three realms. Idam Guru Ratna Mangalakam Niyatayami. And then page 235 for the first two dedications there. You can chant them in Tibetan, but you're welcome to read them over in English. And page 244. Ganri Rawe Gorwe Shingam Pendan Dewa Malu Jumwe Jemre Zewan Zenzing Gyatso Yi Shape Site Badu Dengyur Chik. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving and spreading Manjunat's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honouring the three jewels, saviour of myself and others, your disciples, please live long.
Thank you very much.
So just before everybody runs